The Red Sox injury curse has officially reached all levels of their system. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin, and the Red Sox have been flat out cursed this year when it comes to injuries. We've talked about it a ton on this channel, but it feels like this Red Sox team can't catch a break when it comes to health. However, it's no longer just the big league club that's suffering from this. It's starting to reach all levels of the minor leagues as well, and some of these injuries are pretty impactful ones. So what we are going to do in today's videos, we're taking a look at all of these. We're taking a look at the latest injury updates for a few of the top Red Sox prospects, what's going on, how long they're going to be out, and what that impact could have on the 2024 season. But before we get into that, just a heads up, we are going to be live on this channel tonight, right around 7 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be watching the Red Sox take on the Rays in what's become a bit of a pivotal series for this team, and we're going to be talking about all the latest Red Sox news as well. So if you want to talk some Sox live and in person, head to this channel right around 7 p.m. Eastern time tonight. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and make sure you guys have hit that like button as well. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's start with some of the smaller injuries that are plaguing bigger prospects before we get into the more major impactful ones. The first one is to number 9 prospect in the Red Sox system, Nazzan Zanetello, who has been sidelined with a hamstring injury. I can't find the specific injury that occurred, but it looks like it's some kind of mild strain to his hamstring, as it was just a 7-day IL, which doesn't really mean a whole lot, especially when it comes to prospects. A lot of the time, when we're talking about the 7-day IL for minor league players, they end up being on the IL for much longer than that, but right now it looks like it should just be a mild strain for Nazzan. Any injury for him kind of sucks because in my opinion, he is one of the most intriguing prospects in the Red Sox system right now, and 2, he was absolutely tearing it up in the minor leagues before his injury. This season, he was hitting .412 with a .521 on base percentage over half of his at-bats he was getting on base so far this year, and he had an .824 slug. It wasn't just 6 games in low A this season, and it was good for a .272 WRC plus, about 172% more productive at that level than the average player. That's just flat out video game numbers. Hopefully he can get healthy as soon as possible and the injury doesn't stunt his momentum coming into the year, right? That would suck if he just sort of lost all of that momentum that he had been building up over the first 6 games for him in low A this season. Now, in terms of when he should be coming back, he was put onto the IL, onto the 7-day IL on 5/4, which means he's obviously going to be on the 7-day IL a lot longer than 7 days. I would guess it's probably going to take a couple of weeks until we start to see Nazzan Zanetello back in action, probably be right around the end of May or early June, which again isn't the end of the world, but it does suck to see him, especially after the start he got off to, have to take a breather for a little bit. The other person that I wanted to talk about in terms of, I would say, minor injuries for now is number 10 Red Sox prospect in the system, David Sandlin, who right now is also down for the count at the moment. He was scratched from his start on 5/11 just a couple of days ago with forearm tightness. I don't really have an update in terms of the actual injury report outside of that, but hearing forearm tightness is never a good thing. Now, he was struggling a bit at the high A level this year with a 5.17 ERA, 5.70 FIP, walking 4.6 per 9, but still striking out a ton at 12.06 per 9 innings. Hopefully it's nothing serious here, as forearm tightness could really end up being a significant injury, especially when we're talking about a starting pitcher. We will probably find out pretty soon here what the impact of this overall injury is, and who knows, maybe it's just a quick misstart type fix where he just needs a little bit of time off, right? It's a little sore and he's good to go the next day. That doesn't happen a ton with these forearm tightness injuries, so we'll be keeping an eye on that one. For those of you who don't really know, Sandlin kind of shot up the rankings this year, especially after the latest Sox Prospects update. He was acquired this offseason in the trade with the Kansas City Royals for John Schreiber, so that's where we got Sandlin. He's brand new to the system, but again, if there's any major updates there, I will certainly let you guys know. And so those are the sort of minimal small injuries, right? Those are the ones that could end up being a large impact, but aren't right now at the moment. However, before we get into the super big ones, let's break down some of the good news that's happening in terms of injuries for this Red Sox team. The positive Red Sox news in terms of injured prospects is that a couple of these guys are actually coming back. That would be number 21 prospect in the Red Sox system, Yordan Monegro, and 24 prospect Mikey Romero, who are both currently on a rehab assignment in the Florida Complex League and both looking to get back to high A baseball. In terms of Mikey Romero, he's absolutely killing it in his rehab assignment. A 455 average, a 500 on base percentage, and a 545 slug, good for a 184 WRC plus. Again, 84% better than the average hitter in that league in 3 games. I would assume we see him back in action pretty soon here, especially if he's feeling good and feeling healthy. He's absolutely just slaughtering Florida Complex League pitching. I think pretty quickly we're going to see him back with the high A affiliate. As for Yordani, he's also looked good, but in a smaller sample size in his rehab assignment. He went 3 scoreless innings in his first start back, striking out 4, not walking anyone. Yordani is one of the more intriguing pitching prospects the Red Sox have in their system, so getting him back healthy and ready to go is going to be really important for the future pipeline of the Boston Red Sox. So there's some silver linings here and there's some good news here, and I wanted to sort of sandwich that in between the multiples of Red Sox prospect injuries that we're going to talk about in this video. So I hope you enjoyed the positivity, but there is some really impactful injuries, some bigger injuries that we really need to get to, so let's talk about those as well. The first major injury for the Boston Red Sox in their farm system is to number 16 prospect Johanfran Garcia, who was absolutely killing it in low A this year. The 19-year-old catching prospect had a 385 average, a 467 on base percentage, and a 596 slug, good for a 208 WRC plus. That's 108% more productive at the plate than the average hitter in low A baseball. And it wasn't over just a super small sample size of games, it was over 14 games. He was starting to make waves both in the Red Sox system and honestly on a national level as well. You were starting to see his name get brought up in national publications. Unfortunately, that has come to an absolute screeching halt when a couple of weeks ago he injured his knee rounding first base, trying to get to second and stopping quickly. He ended up having to be carted off the field. I think everyone was sort of hoping that, hey, maybe this was just a rehab thing that you need a month or 2 to get back from, and then you can get back onto the field. Unfortunately, that is not the case, because on 5/11, just a couple of days ago, we found out Johanfran is going to end up needing season-ending surgery. Obviously, always miserable to hear that. You hate to see, especially a prospect that has just been on an absolute tear, end up coming to a basically screeching halt and end up ruining his entire 2024 season. It's just one of those freak injuries that happens in baseball sometime, and it sucks when it happens to players on your team or in your system. Now, I don't have the exact information as to what was completely wrong with Johanfran's knee, but the assumption here is that he obviously tore something in there. I would assume something with a ligament, and he's going to end up in a brace after surgery for a pretty decent period of time. And again, this was a guy who was starting to make waves nationally. That is not going to happen. So unfortunately, again, this is going to end Johanfran Garcia's 2024 season. In my opinion, a really impactful injury for the Red Sox farm system. The other pretty significant Red Sox farm system injury occurred just this week when number 17 prospect Blaze Jordan on May 11th injured his finger sliding into home plate. He was originally placed on the 7-day IL list, and this is why I say you can't really take too much stock in prospects getting put onto the 7-day IL list, because it's just sort of, it's like the 10-day IL to major league level, right? It's that initial reaction, hey, let's get him off the field, let's make sure that he has some time to figure this out, and then we'll deal with that from there. Because last night it was announced that he had actually fractured his finger and is going to end up missing a couple of weeks here. Now, this isn't totally the end of the world for Blaze Jordan. It's not going to keep him out for the rest of the season. In fact, we've seen players at the big league level who have fractured parts of their body before come back in just a couple of weeks. Rob Refsnyder this year is a perfect example of that, although I will say I think there's a pretty distinct difference between fracturing your toe and the rehab rehab process and fracturing your finger in that rehab process, mostly because you definitely use your finger a whole lot more in baseball, especially at the plate. So it's probably going to take Blaze Jordan a bit of time here to get back and going, and that really sucks, especially because of what Blaze has been doing lately. Overall, so far in AA, he's hitting .283 with a .342 on base percentage and a .414 slug. Again, good for a .116 WRC plus, about 16% above league average production. But in the 2 weeks before his injury on a stacked Portland Sea Dogs team, Blaze Jordan was the highlight. In those 2 weeks, he was hitting .377 with a .424 on base percentage and a .509 slug, good for a .166 WRC plus, 60 points higher than what he was doing over the course of the year, and 66% better than the average hitter in AA baseball. Now, I don't know if any of these were really ever going to have an impact on the 2024 Red Sox, but of these prospect injuries, Blaze Jordan was the one who had the best chance. With Casas going down for a significant period of time and the substitutes that the Red Sox had brought in order to man first base in the meantime really not performing the way you'd want it to, there was a lot of mumbling within Red Sox Nation as to whether or not, especially with the last couple of weeks that Blaze Jordan has had, if he would end up being fast-tracked a little bit to Major League Baseball to see if he could contribute at the Major League level. Now, I never really thought this was a legitimate opportunity for the Red Sox to do that. I still think there was some things that they wanted to work on with Blaze Jordan, but this obviously puts an entire end to that. And for someone who had been struggling a bit at the AA level to begin the year, to have this happen right after he had finally started to really turn a corner here isn't ever fun. None of these injuries, talking about any of these injuries, are never fun, especially when it comes to guys who are still trying to make their way to Major League Baseball. It sucks to see them sidelined, and I really hope that, again, kind of like we talked about with Nazzan Zanetello, this doesn't halt what Blaze Jordan was building over the last couple of weeks, right? Because a couple of weeks off and trying to get right and focusing on making sure your body is healthy is obviously the number one priority here, but that also means you're not prioritizing what you were doing in game that was leading to this success. It's fair, but it also sucks, and hopefully he can kind of find a marriage between the two and end up coming back and performing similarly to what he was doing at the end right before he got injured, because I do think, especially if Casas ends up being down for a really long period of time, there was an opportunity for Blaze Jordan to blaze a path like that to Major League Baseball this year. I don't think that's going to happen. I never really thought that was going to happen, but I think there's just much less of a chance now. So in terms of impact to the 2024 Red Sox, there really isn't a ton here, especially because a lot of these guys are in the lower levels of the minors. Blaze Jordan was definitely the most significant. Overall, taking a look at these injuries again, it just sucks. It sucks talking about any injuries to any player, because you want these guys, especially your prospects, obviously your big league guys too, but prospects, you love, there's so much hope, there's so much potential there, and you love to see that come to fruition. It sucks to see that put to a stop. The silver lining in all of these injuries is that they got injured while they were in the minor leagues, right? This isn't a couple of weeks into their major league debut. They weren't trying to iron out a position on the major league club. They have the ability and the time to really get themselves right and make sure that they avoid injuries like this in the future. So there's that as well. But overall, again, it's just not fun to talk about these, and unfortunately the Red Sox injury curse is starting to trickle down into the minor leagues as well. Hopefully we start to see a bit of a stop in that league at some point here, but until then, let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think? Which one of these injuries are you paying attention to the most? Are there any in here where you're like, I can live with that? Is there anyone in here that you're more excited about than the others? Let me know all your thoughts on the latest Red Sox prospect injuries in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It just helps these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Don't forget, live tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern time on this channel, talking Sox, watching Sox. It's the Sox Palooza. You're not going to want to miss it. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the red seats.